We got the Georgia Bulldogs coming in at noon. ESPN nationally TV game. A lot of TV games this week, of course, as always. And hopefully it's the first of a lot of big games for us this year, hopefully. Obviously, the team that wins the game is off to a good start in the Eastern Division of the SEC. And we got them at home here. We've played pretty well at home, and we need for that to continue to give us a chance to beat these guys. They're a very good team. They had a very good opening game against Louisiana Lafayette last week. Their defense was outstanding, and their offense played very well also. So they're a typical Georgia team, very good. And they seem to be playing with a lot more fire maybe on defense than they have in the last year or two. But anyway, very good team, well coached. We got to really play well, but we're looking forward to it. We're pretty healthy right now, so it should be a heck of a game. Looking forward to seeing what happens out here Saturday afternoon. Okay, any questions?
Steve, when you were at Florida, it seemed like Georgia was your big conference rival. Have you sensed here that Georgia's become South Carolina's biggest conference rival?
I don't know if they're our biggest. Actually, Tennessee was our biggest after a few years because Tennessee was better than Georgia in the 90s. So they were our biggest rival, as it turned out. But historically, Florida-Georgia was the big rival. But again, they probably are our biggest rival, especially in the SEC East. It would be either them or Tennessee. We haven't beaten Tennessee or Florida enough hadn't beaten Georgia enough really to call them a big rival. But anyway, it's a crucial game because it is within our Eastern Division. If you have any hopes of trying to win your division, you obviously got to beat the division teams. So this is one of those games.
Looking at the depth chart, I see that Brian Maddox is now at fullback, and I guess that Dion LeCone has been switched over to defense to Spur. Just talk a little about those two position changes.
There's not a lot to talk about. Dion was third or fourth at wide receiver. Some of those young guys have come on very well, Ace Sanders and so forth, and he actually made the suggestion he wanted to try to play and help the team. So Coach Beamer's got him over there at Spur position, and hopefully he will really be committed to learning our defense and helping us play over there. We're a little thin at that position. Okay, the other question was he actually started the game last week. He and Marcus were actually in there in the two-back setup. Patrick DeMarco is probably listed at tight end, but he can play fullback also. So we've got players that can play a little bit of both positions in there.
Hey, Coach, with all the optimism that's been brewing around the program here in the last week, does it feel any different this year, considering all the talent you've got, than in years past after winning that opener?
I don't know how it feels any differently. We've usually struggled every opener, if that's what you mean. We didn't struggle as badly against Southern Miss as we usually do. I don't know what that means. We had some good breaks here and there. We were 5 for 5 in red zone scoring. They were 2 for 6. So it wasn't like we just dominated them. We scored when we had chances, and they messed up a bunch, and we played some good defense in the red zone, really, is what happened. So anyway, that game's history. Don't need to dwell on it. We're trying to make a lot of corrections on errors that we made in the game and see if we can't play our best this week. That's what we hope to do throughout the season, is play a little bit better the next week as we go through.
Coach, does 3-4 defense make any special challenges for your offense?
It is a little bit of a 3-4, but it's a 4-down lineman a lot also. I think even their defensive coach would tell you that it's not a big deal whether 3 guys got their hand on the ground or 4. It's how they play and play their assignments and all that. So they're very active. Their defensive ends are extremely fast around the edges. And they're a pressure defense, and by that I mean almost all the guys are rushing. They're not sitting back reading zone blocks or anything. They're coming. When it's snapped, they're on the come. So it'll be a big challenge for our offensive linemen. We played decent last week. We didn't run the ball extremely well as some people thought because obviously the one reverse went 50-some yards and quarterbacks gained about 80. So that was about a good over half of our yardage was right there. But we need to block and obviously need to run the ball to give ourselves a better chance this week.
How did your defensive line play in your estimation? And facing a freshman quarterback, do you ask them to do anything differently than facing an experienced guy?
Our D-line played pretty well last week. I don't think we got as many sacks as we had hoped, but their quarterback was catching it and throwing it quickly. Which a lot of them do nowadays. That's what we got to do also is catch it and throw it quickly. So anyway, yeah, our D-line played pretty well.
You seem to show quite a bit offensively against Southern Miss. What percentage of your offense did you use, and how much more are you going to unveil against Georgia?
Oh, I don't know what percentage. Obviously, we had a lot of plays we didn't run, which we will probably have after this game too. But anyway, we hope not to have a new offense every week. You can't do that. You got to run what your guys have been running, and we have a certain group of plays we try to run from some different looks. That's what most all teams do nowadays.
Coach, the last few years, these games between Georgia have always come down to the last couple plays. A tough loss last year, obviously. Do you think it gets a little more intense when you guys play?
No, I just rehashing those games doesn't do any good. But we've not been successful. We know that. But we know a lot of other games we have been successful in games that come down the wire. So we're not going to dwell on that this week. If we play well and play our best, we know we can play with Georgia. That's all we know is we can play with them. That's all. But certainly to beat them, we got to play better. We can't have touchdowns called back. We can't, hopefully have those mistakes that have cost us in prior games. So we're going to just try to play the game and concentrate on what we need to do so much, and hopefully that'll give us the best chance to compete at the highest level, best chance to win the game. As we just got to go play. The prior games have no bearing on this one. The team that wins it, the team that prepared the best through the week and played the best on game day. Got to go make plays. So we're going to try to make more plays in Georgia here Saturday.
Steve, does Ace Sanders remind you any of the faster, smaller receivers you had at Florida, and has he come around a little faster than you thought he would?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of Kenny McKinley, not quite as tall, but straight ahead speed. I don't know if he's a little faster than Kenny or not. They're pretty similar, but he's got the quicks that Kenny had here, and not quite as tall. But Ace is a good player. He's our backup holder. He can run punts back or kickoffs if we ask him to do that. So we're trying to find ways to get him on the field more. We need to utilize his talents a little bit more than we did last game.
Steve, also on Ace, with the way offenses have varied through the last couple of years, does it make more spots for little guys like Ace, guys who you might have thought were too small 10 years ago? Folks are more willing to give them a chance? Yeah,
I think so. Now with the spread offenses and the formations people are using, it's turned into a speed game, a game of quickness. So there's definitely a place for fast, small guys that love to play football. They got to be tough also, and certainly Ace is pretty tough kid. But anyway, you see a lot of smaller players, I think, at all the schools that spread out and throw the ball around, and speed is probably a little bit more. Well, it's definitely more important than size. You need big guys up front, but they need to be able to move also.
10 years ago, would you have given a guy like that a shot? Would you have recruited a guy that small, or you just seen that size?
Yeah, we've had some guys that small. guess the one that comes to mind is Jaquez Green was not much bigger, a little taller than Ace, but body size pretty similar.
Steve, do you ever get concerned when Steven takes off on one of the scrambles and leads with his head into those tackles? Maybe that he'll take a hit that he can't just bounce back from?
Well, we tell him not to lead with his head, and I wish he would, sort of duck a little bit and not lead with his head. But he's trying to get his shoulders more into it. Obviously, Steven, he needs to run occasionally, not a lot, but if you're going to run the spread type offense, your quarterback's got to keep it every now and then. So we encourage him to run every now and then, but we encourage him to try to find a little hole in there and to fall forward. So, in fact, on his second touchdown the other night, we said, Steven, it was first down. All you need to do is get it back to the 1 yard line, and he actually reached it across the goal line to score. They could have knocked it out of his hands. That wouldn't have been very smart on first down. But anyway, we're telling him to protect himself a little bit better as he runs.
Coach, obviously against Georgia, it's a little bit bigger test for your defense. With Shaq Wilson out, just talk about what you want to see from the linebackers.
Our linebackers played pretty well last week, and they got to continue playing. We got to tackle well. Georgia is somewhat returning to the way they've played in years past, run the ball, play great defense, and certainly that's a good recipe for success. The one thing that concerns us this week is our special team play. As you guys might have known, Georgia basically won their bowl game against Texas A&M with a whole bunch of returns, and they actually were one of the teams that got one on us last year. So we got to cover kicks, punts, kickoffs. Our special team plays got to be very good this week. We need to make sure it's pretty good. Our last game, we covered kickoffs very well. Didn't cover the punts too well. So-so. I think we only had 2 that counted. One of them, they had a penalty, so we only punted twice, but they averaged about 15 yards return. So that's a concern. Georgia does play well on special teams. They can make some big plays. So we got to be on our toes there. Their punter, I think, was an All-American last year. I think he either won or he's up for that Ray Guy punting award again this year. So they got an excellent punter.
Coach, Georgia plays with a redshirt freshman quarterback. You still rate them typical Georgia, even with quarterback being a redshirt freshman?
Yeah, well, he's been there a while. Yeah, he's been there longer than Connor Shaw's been here. So he's been there long enough not to really sort of be a freshman type guy. He's been through probably a couple of spring practices and so forth. And he's ready to play. He's a good player. Yeah, we watched him on tape there. Aaron Murray, he's a very good player. He can run around some, and he knows what he's doing. He's been there enough to know exactly what they're doing. And he's got a lot of good players around him. That's what helps all quarterbacks. Have a lot of good players around you.
With Culliver and King, do you anticipate it coming down to the wire like it did last week, and how does that affect your preparation? And at the same time, Georgia's got a player in a similar situation, a key player in A.J. Green.
We would just prepare as if he may play. We think he's going to play, but we don't know for sure. In fact, we don't know if Jarrell King's going to play for sure either. So those are the 2 that are in question, I should say. But again, we got backup players. They all take snaps, and away we go. So the NCAA will tell us what the deal is prior to the game, and both teams will abide by it, and away we'll go.
T.J. Johnson makes his first start at center. What makes him such a great player to be able to make that transition?
Well, I noticed where T.J. made SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. I tell you what. That must have been some good talking somebody did in here, giving him a game ball. No, he played pretty well, but he basically got the game ball because the snaps were so good. I mean, they were good snaps, and as you watch all the games over the weekend, you can see if that guy can't snap it to the guy in shotgun, you got some problems. So TJ was very good on his snaps. He was pretty good blocking, though. He had a good blocking game up front. But anyway, he got some nice recognition for that. Obviously, you guys don't know how he played